Thank you so much for joining us as we present some information about the continuous improvement process and some updates that have been made. I am April Black, the director of the School Improvement Department. I'm joined this morning by two of my coordinators. We'll start with Jonna with introductions.
Hi, I'm Jonna No.
And I'm Jennifer Moore.
We do have some exciting updates to share with you this morning. By the end of the session, you'll understand the updates that have been made to the continuous improvement process timeline, the new submission procedures, and the review and approval process. You'll also know how to access the guidance and resources that are available to support you with this process at your school. And you'll understand the next steps for closing out this school year and the preparation for the upcoming school year. So the continuous improvement process and the SPP roadmap do support the vision of the Clark County School District by prioritizing those three inquiry areas: student success, developing highly effective staff, and connecting with all members of the school community. Within the student success inquiry area, CI teams may develop plans that support the components of the teaching and learning cycle, and we do that to strengthen our instructional core. And in this area, the SPP may describe how students are going to show what they know by participating in the teaching and learning cycle, and how teachers are going to use student data to inform the tiered instructional support. In the adult learning culture inquiry area, that provides us an opportunity for schools to describe the clear expectations and strong instructional core and analyze student data during the structured professional learning community meetings. And as that data is analyzed, it's important that we are addressing every student group to determine the appropriate scaffolds and supports to ensure that our Tier 1 grade level curriculum is available for all of our students. And in the connectedness inquiry area, the SPP may describe how the school will plan for and regularly teach social and emotional and positive behavioral skills. And this area may describe structures that support teachers with using the adopted SEL curriculum and the survey data to provide tiered instructional supports in the social, emotional, and behavioral needs. So we'll ask you to take a moment to read the research on the slide. So after reviewing the quotes on the slide, we hope it illustrates that the continuous improvement process is not just one more thing that we're asking you to do. It's the vehicle that moves schools forward by keeping a strong focus on the important strategies that we know will impact student success across the school district.
Thank you, April. Speaking of experts, we know that many of you are very familiar with the continuous improvement process in Nevada, and we wanted to take you through some of the updates made in the spirit of getting better at getting better. Updates include adjustments in the timeline, the procedures for submitting completed CIP work, and how the SPP roadmap will be reviewed and approved. You may recall that we started the continuous improvement process this school year by conducting Act 3 reviewing our journey. The decisions made by the CI team during Act 3 inform those revisions that were made to the SPP in Act 1 in September, following the release of the NSPF. Following our current timeline, your school had a completed plan by October. However, we recognize that it's important for schools to have a plan in place before the school year begins. In order to make that adjustment, CCSD received a waiver from the requirement of completing Status Check 2 for the 22-23 school year. And in its place, CCSD schools will conduct Act 3, reviewing our journey during the month of May, following the close of the spring map growth assessment window. And this is shown in the revised timeline on the screen. The revised timeline shifts both Act 3 and Act 1 to the end of the school year, and this more closely aligns to all of our authentic conversations and reflections that we're going through typically at this time of year. And during Act 3, the CI team will reflect on the implementation of the SBP. We're going to determine whether those goals were met and which goals and or improvement strategies might want to be continued, canceled, or corrected in the upcoming school year. The outcomes of these decisions are summarized in the Act 3 tab of the status tracker in your SPP roadmap folder. You're going to notice that on the master sheet, the column for status check 2 has been marked NA because of the waiver for this year that I mentioned. And the only thing for you to do on that tab is to type the date of the Act 3 meeting in the yellow box where it reads insert date here. Information will automatically populate in the white cells based on what is entered in the Act 3 tab. You will also see that the Status Check 2 tab has been hidden and the Act 3 tab is ready for use right now. When the Act 3 tab is completed, it should look something like the sample and include the narrative summary and the now, next, and need sections. School teams are going to be soliciting advice and assistance from your school organizational team during the month of May, which is now. This is going to be the final SOT meeting of the year, so it's important that you're putting that on your agenda and seeking input during this time before you're making revisions to your plan. This input from the SOT, in conjunction with the information from the Act 3 meeting, will inform the revisions to the SPP roadmap during Act 1 developing the plan. It's important to note that Act 1 SPP revisions can occur anytime following Act 3 up until its due date of July 3rd, 2023. In fact, if revisions are made to the SPP during the Act 3 conversations, you can complete both of these acts at the same time. Completing Act 1 during the summer months means that the plan can be shared with the school community and all personnel at the beginning of the school year. And it also means that every stakeholder will know where the school focus is and what the action steps are in order to achieve the school's goals. School staff can immediately focus on implementing the plan and monitoring progress from the very first day of the school year rather than developing the plan after the school year has begun. Do we have any questions so far?
I do have a question. If we choose to or elect to change some of our goals,
Mhm.
do we work within the SPP roadmap plan that we have currently, or do we need to draft a new one for the 23-24 school year?
Nope, you're going to make those changes right in your existing SPP roadmap.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Jonna.
All right, thank you. Good question. So as Jen mentioned, having the plan completed in the summer gives us opportunity to present it at the beginning of the school year, and Nevada law requires that schools present the SPP at a public meeting before final approval. So in this updated timeline, this is going to occur in August. This doesn't have to be a standalone meeting that's just for that purpose. So think about other opportunities that you have at the beginning of the school year, other public meetings where you might be able to share your plan with your school community in August. So if you can think of any ideas, put them in the chat or unmute yourself and shout them out.
SOT, got open house, Title I night, Title I parent meeting, freshman academic night, family engagement meetings.
Remember that we can combine this with another public meeting. And then after presenting the plan in your public meeting, you'll want to consider any feedback that you might have gathered. And then possibly that feedback may result in major changes to the plan. If that happens, the plan will need to be approved again. But otherwise, once the plan is approved and been presented in a public meeting, it can be posted to the school's website. So let's just stop for a second and check to make sure that we're all understanding. We have two questions. What will need to be completed by August? Act 3 decisions, Act 1 revisions, or both?
Most of our responses are both, which is accurate. You're going to reflect on your implementation of your plan this year. That occurs sometime in May following the release of the MAP data from your spring assessment. And then you will use that information combined with input and advice from your SOT to begin making those revisions to your SPP roadmap, which is Act 1, and that is due by the July 3rd. So you'll actually complete both acts between now and July 3rd. So I'm going to launch the next poll, which is when should you present your SPP to your school community? And your options are over the summer, August, or never. The correct answer is August. We will be presenting our plan to our school community in August when the school year begins. We are required by law to do so, to incorporate any community perceptions or ideas into our plan. That is a choice that the school makes. If we do decide to make any updates based on the input from our school community, we will need to get approval from your principal supervisor to approve your plan again. It will be preliminarily approved by the end of July. So you will start the school year with a plan that's been reviewed and approved by both the school improvement department and your school associate superintendent. And then barring any changes, that plan is presented to the community and then posted on your website. I do want to just remind you that your educators are also part of your school community. So sharing that plan when your staff is back full time for the next school year is also an opportunity to share that plan.
Thank you, April. That was Act 3 and Act 1, but the adjusted timeline also moves the status checks to be earlier in the school year, and this is Act 2. Status check 1 is scheduled to occur following the release of the NSPF, the school accountability reports, and school designations. Also at that time, schools will already have information relating to the implementation of the plan, and you'll have student assessment data that you collected during the first quarter. So you'll be able to use both summative and formative data to make timely adjustments to the SPP roadmap before moving into the second quarter of the school year and prior to the submission of plans to the Nevada Department of Education. So we will still do the work to develop the plan of operation during January and February. Now it's just called status check 2, whereas this year it was status check 1. One thing you might want to think about, licensed staff and support staff who are on your CI team, they're not working in June when the SPP revisions in Act 1 are being completed. So like April mentioned, it's important to gather that information from your team now during Act 3. You could also consider offering extra duty pay if that's available. You could share your SPP revisions via email and ask for feedback from the team that way. And you can also gather input from the staff who are on campus during your summer learning activities. So another thing to think about is that the school organizational team does not meet during the summer months, and we do have requirements around the SOT meetings. So it's important to remember, again, to gather input from the team in May and then present the plan again in August. If you have goals that are written around summative data, you might not have that data available yet. So we ask that you use formative assessment data to evaluate your progress towards reaching your goals and to help you set a target for next year. If the goals need to be revised after the release of the NSPF, you can make any of those revisions during the first status check in the fall. Also, during status check 1, the school improvement department will be here to support schools with completing any of the SPP requirements for designated schools. In addition to adjusting the timeline, we do have new procedures for schools to submit the CIP work. CI team leads will submit confirmation of completion and website postings after each CIP act and status check. So these procedures are to ensure the requirements of the law are being met, and it also will provide schools with more timely feedback and notification of approval. So let's look at this a little bit more in detail. When you complete work during the CIP, it will be submitted through Google Forms, and these forms are linked in the directions for each one of the ACT, and Jen will show you where the directions are later. For most of the CIP acts, you will be submitting 2 forms. Like I said, one to confirm that the work is completed, and another that confirms the required documents are posted to the school's website after approval. Once you complete the submission forms, School Improvement Department will be notified that the work is complete and it's ready to be reviewed. School Improvement and the principal supervisors will monitor the results of the submission forms and will be able to provide support to schools as needed. While we review the SPP roadmaps, we will provide feedback, and we're going to do that directly in the Google Docs using the comments feature. The School Improvement Department will provide support and assistance if you need help to resolve any of the comments and make sure that they are all resolved before we submit it to the principal supervisor for approval. So once all the comments and feedback have been resolved, the School Improvement Department will submit the plan for approval to the principal supervisor, and we're going to be using the embedded Google Docs approvals feature. Principal supervisors are notified by email that the plan is ready for their review. They might provide feedback through the comments. When they're ready, they will click approve directly in the document, and that action notifies the School Improvement Department that the plan has been approved. Once we get that notification, we will notify the principal and the CI team lead via email that the SPP has been approved and is ready to be shared with the school community. Some of the benefits to these procedures are that you can complete them at any time the submission form. So if you finish the work before the due date, you can submit the form and School Improvement will be notified that your work is ready to be reviewed and approved. This will help to receive clear and timely feedback directly in the document to help guide any revisions that might need to be made. These procedures make communication more transparent and consistent to make sure that everyone knows when the plan is approved. They also ensure accountability for the important continuous improvement work and will help the School Improvement Department know who might need assistance before the due date. All right, Jen's going to take us through the guidance and resources.
All right, we're in our home stretch. In the SPP roadmap folder, as Jonna mentioned, you'll see a document that includes all of the guidance and resources that have been created to support the CI team leads. You can open this document yourself or you can follow along on the next slides. Most of you are already familiar with our guidance and resources document because we've been utilizing this format since the CIP was introduced. We are working on an updated guidance and resources document that's going to provide you with the resources that you need at the time that you need them. Once approved, this document will replace the previous guidance and resources in your SPP roadmap folders. So there's not anything that you'll need to do, but if you notice at any point that you go in and the format has changed, that's why. The revised document is going to include the actions that need to be completed by each of the responsible parties and detailed directions and resources for each act. The timeline and due dates are included, and if you click on the link in the timeline box, you can add these dates to your Google Calendar, and by doing this and following this timeline, you can schedule all of the CIT meetings for next school year so that everyone involved can be prepared and ready to engage in those team discussions when you're having your meetings. In the meantime, we have added these directions to the Act 3 and Act 1 in this document. So we're going to click on the Act 3 directions and resources link. Directions for each act of the CIP include more detailed steps describing how to prepare for and how to complete the CIP work. Links are included throughout the directions if you need additional guidance or resources. For example, on the Act 3 directions, you can see a link to the data slide deck template, an agenda, and a sign-in sheet for your CIT meeting, a note catcher for your now next need protocol, and you can choose to use any of these resources, but you also have the flexibility to use any other format or resources that you choose. The links to the submission forms are also included in each of the directions. You'll notice that the Act 3, you're only going to complete one submission form. The bottom of the page has contact information for a school improvement department and a link to the next step for the continuous improvement process. And now that we have shared all these updates, we're going to review your next steps as the CI team lead. Our next steps are summarized on this slide with the corresponding due date. Remember that you're gathering information during Act 3 and moving directly into Act 1 to revise the SPP roadmap. Also remember that the submission forms may be turned in at any time once the work is completed. You don't have to wait until that deadline. Your plan is going to be approved no later than July 28th.
I do want to point out that the continuous improvement process is evident in many of the standards and indicators on the NEPF for administrators and teachers. So by engaging in this work at your school, you're creating and sustaining a focus on learning, a culture of continuous improvement, productive relationships, and structures and systems for school improvement. So through the collective efforts of your school staff, the school performance plan will be targeted, impactful, and should result in improved student outcomes. As always, we are here to help. If you would like to request support from the school improvement department, we do have a request form. It's also linked at the bottom of every single one of the directions or request support. Please click here, and then we will respond to you to help you out. So we're going to close our session today. Let's look at our intended outcomes and what we've accomplished. We reviewed the updates to the CIP timeline, the submission procedures, and the review and approval process. You know how to access the guidance and resources that are available to support you at your school. And we reviewed the next steps for closing out the school year and preparing for the upcoming 23-24 school year. And then we also ask you, again, thank you so much for participating today. Take time to complete this survey. Thank you very much again for attending, and have a great day.